جزاك الله.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So we're in the section talking about Israf, and we were talking about how Israf was to be wasteful, and that Islam says that we should be moderate. We should take the middle course. We shouldn't be extravagant, and we should not be wasteful. We shouldn't be stingy, and we shouldn't also be wasteful in a way that we act out of wisdom and then end up with nothing to take care of our family or other things. We said that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, when a person practices moderation, I guarantee that he will never be destitute. And Imam Bakr alayhi salam said, three things facilitate salvation of a person. One is fearing Allah, taqwa. Second one is practicing moderation in poverty and affluence, and to say only the rightful thing, even when angry or upset. So these three things, Imam says, they bring us towards salvation. So one of them is being moderate in times of poverty and also when we have excess wealth. So now we take example from companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my favorite Sahaba, Abu Dhar. So he was lived during the time of Uthman as well, up until that time. So Uthman gave him 200 coins. He gave them to his 200 gold coins to his servants, and he told those servants, take them to Abu Dhar and say that Uthman has sent his salam to you, and he asked you to take these 200 gold coins, and you can use them for whatever you like. So when the servants brought the gold coins to Abu Dhar, and they gave him Uthman's message, he said, has Uthman given a similar amount to all of the Muslimin? Because Uthman was caliph of the time. He said, did he give this 200 gold coins as like a stipend to all the Muslims, or did he only just give it to me? Basically, they said no. So then he asked them, am I superior to all the other Muslims that he singles me out and only gives these to me? The servant said, Uthman said that these gold coins are from his personal property, and by Allah, they are halal. Abu Dhar said, I don't need them because I'm free from need. I'm needless. I don't need anything. I don't want them. They said, but we looked in your house, we didn't see anything. And that shows that you have something. His house is barren, he doesn't have anything. Abu Dhar pointed towards a utensil and he said, there are two pieces of barley bread in it, like a bowl or something. And I am needless because he had what he needed for that day. This is, humbleness of Abu Dhar. And obviously, we know from history that he wanted to give Abu Dhar some money. We call it hush money. Just be quiet, take this money, and don't talk against us, because Abu Dhar was very big critic of Uthman. So he wanted to silence him through money. That's the way they pay people off, and they leave them alone. And it happens all the way till today. So we see another type of narration. Muawiyah sent two of his slaves with some money to Abu Dhar, and Abu Dhar didn't accept them. Then the slave said, yeah, Abu Dhar, Muawiyah promised to free us if you accept the money. Please just accept it so we can be free. Abu Dhar said, if I take them, you would be free from Muawiyah's slavery, but then I will become his slave, because then I'll be forced to obey him, because he's selling his religion for some material gains. And as we know, they say there's never a free lunch. Sometimes people is giving you something, in this case, Muawiyah is giving him something, but he wants to control him, wants to reign over him, and he says, "Oh, I gave you this favor, so now basically you owe me, and you have to do what I say." So Muawiyah was trying to trick him, and Abu Dhar knew the trick. He said, "I don't want anything from you. I don't want anything to do with you." We see that author says that one of the Sayyid, Sayyid Abu Ala Ma'udi, Ma'ududi writes in his book, Islam and Economic Problems, that all the evils in the world are due to the wasteful expenditure of rich people and their vain pastimes. So these people consider, for example, singing, dancing, music, acting, all of these things, like the bad type of films, as necessary entertainments. And they have bought all of these type of professionals and these type that do these type of evil things, and they bought the industry basically, and the industry has flourished in the time. We see that. Look at the music industry, the entertainment industry, basically music, films, all of these type of things, and then they are very high paid and people are attracted to them, look at them as role models. They say, oh, this singer is my role model, this actor is my role model, this actress or this type of sports player or something. They're my role model. They're not looking towards Ahlul Bayt. But we see a lot of these films that, or either music that they're in is bad. But this type of entertainment is used as one of the tricks. It's media, so it's one of the tricks of Shaitan that Shaitan uses to influence people through these type of things, and it's coming after, especially the youth and the younger generation through music. We can see that, for example, over the years, how it has changed. Um, in one time, the music would promote one certain ideology. Everyone would follow that ideology. For example, that everyone has to be tough, or they talk about crime, or they talk about glorify gangs and drugs and alcohol. And people go after those things because they want to be cool because of the music. And the same thing later on, other agendas came in, like promoting ideas that we are against. And now we see that, for example, in music industry, men are dressing like ladies, ladies are like men, and vice versa. The roles is very strange, the type of things they're doing, and they weren't doing this 20 years ago. But when people see the musicians do it, then everybody else is following suit and going after that, like cattle. They're just following, they're wandering here and there. And unfortunately, they're trying to target our youth to bring them away from Islam through these type of things. And people look at entertainment industry as a necessary thing, that we have to have entertainment. This industry is a necessity. So people are being attracted to these things. And the author is saying that this is a wasteful type of israf, to spend money on all of these things. Why should people spend, millions of dollars on this entertainment, and the only thing is bringing bad ideas and taking people away from path of Islam? So it's resulted in, all these different entertainment industry, and they're not, necessary for respectable people. Respectable people, they don't need these things. A lot of people think that, how could I live my life without the music industry? Or how could I live my life without, the film industry or any of these other things? But they're not necessities. We see many people living their life and enjoying life, and it doesn't mean they have to live a boring life, but they live a life of fulfillment of other things, going after what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. They have halal pleasures. Traveling, for example, seeing new places, trying different foods, experiencing different cultures. This is all halal. It doesn't have to be based on these type of things. So he said this is one of the type of wasteful things. And because people are wasting a lot of money on that, a lot of the world's problems are coming out of that, especially akhlaqi type of problems. He says, these vices from these entertainment industries are destroying the morality and the basic human values. And we can see that if we look over the years, from, go back 50 years, and every decade, you could see the morality has gone to pretty much nothing. There's no morality left in a lot of countries. He says even sports and excursions have become commercialized into wealth amassing business. Misguided people have instigated a section of society to indulge in wine, drugs, other intoxicants. As I said, these type of industries promote these things and they make them seem like it's a necessity. Like, how could you not have fun without having drugs? How could you have fun without drinking or without I've met people like that before. Uh, Maybe when I was in my mid 20s, and they would say, do you want to, they're non-Muslim. They say, oh, do you want to drink? I said, no, I don't drink alcohol. I don't, we have drugs. You want to do drugs? No, I'm good. I don't do those things. Oh, you want to go to nightclub? No. And so what do you do then? Like how can you have fun without that? In some people's minds, that's what they equate to having fun. So these things all have bad effects on society, and they spend their money, building. These people are wasting a lot of money. These entertainment industry people who are making money off of that, they waste their money and do israf. They build lavish mansions. They throw huge parties. They're spending on gold jewelry, diamonds, for example. Someone has a chain maybe is worth $1 million. Imagine how much poverty you could eradicate with just that money for the chain, and they take it as a symbol of, pride and arrogance and these things, that I have a chain that's worth $1 million, for example. Or a dress or a purse or something that's, worth $25,000, or $50,000 for one purse. Or especially when we see the arts, people have a painting and they say this painting is worth, the painting is not worth that much. I mean, put the time and effort, but it's what the value of people put on it, and they have driven the price up and say this painting is worth $30 million, or some, crazy amount of money. And, imagine the money they spent on that painting, how many orphanages they could have built, or how many schools they could have built, or how many kids they could have helped in these impoverished countries. So when we look at it in this way, it's a type of israf. And he said, even the author brings examples. They said, even in these mansions, they have a special room only for their dog to live in, for example. Like we have a guest room, we have guests, or we have rooms for ourselves and our children and our study or something like this, maybe are necessary. But they have a guest room for their dog or something like this, or they have a golden collar on their dog, or this leash with diamonds on the leashes. You know, People should respect animals, but some go to such an extent that they're dressing their dogs in designer clothing. They give them jewel encrusted collars with diamonds and rubies and these things. Are they, giving them their own bedrooms or feeding them steaks, for example, while we have people who are in need of basic necessities of life. So all of this type of thing is israf. He says, in the face of such wasteful expenditure are the destitute and deprived masses who cannot even have their basic needs fulfilled. So we see places, I remember that my friend from Kuwait, they went to some villages in Africa. He was saying, we want to do some stuff for you or this or that. And he said, all we want is water. Make a way for us to have a well so that we can get water. And this is all we need. So some places are not getting even their basic necessities fulfilled. So we see that Quran speaks against being wasteful. So when we have money, we should think about how we can meet our needs, our family's needs, and then after that, what can we do to help others? You know, if these people had only used their money, getting rid of poverty and fulfilling the needs of the poor, they would have done a big service to humanity. They would have been remembered also for doing something good and with their life, instead of being remembered of who had the biggest chain or who had the biggest house or who had the most cars and these things. And we have to mention, wealth in itself is not evil thing, but it's a test to see what we do with it. Will we waste it on unnecessary things, or will we, spend it on haram things, for example, or will we use it to help fi sabilillah in the cause of Allah, helping mankind, making sure that, we make investments for our hereafter. So wealth is good. If we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us wealth in order that we can help other people, it's good. But if we have wealth just to hoard it or just to waste it and just throw it here or there, it would be against us. It would be better not to have that money. And we see sometimes a lot of people change when they get money. Maybe they were humble, they were good, and they were doing all their wajibat, for example. But then when they feel that they got money, that they don't need, why do I need to pray anymore? Because I have enough to money. I don't have any needs. I don't need to ask Allah for anything. But they forget that Allah is the one that gives them that money, and Allah can also take it back from them. He says, uh, extravagance depends on the capacity of a person, and what is extravagance for a poor man may not be considered lavishness for a rich man. However, it does not mean that the affluent people are free to spend their wealth in any way they like. Most certainly, they cannot spend on anything which is haram. In fact, the rules that apply to the rich are very strict, he says. When they have been bestowed with the wealth, they have to live in a manner suitable to their status. But, the rest of the money they have, they shouldn't hoard that money or waste that money. And the excess wealth that they have, they should be used in a manner, according to religion. So they have to, obviously, if they have leftover money after 1 year's time from their homes date that they set, they need to pay their homes the 20%, which half of that goes to the poor Sadat, the from the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa and the other half, Saham Imam, goes towards projects that the Imam would approve of, or charitable projects, and these things that have ijaza from Maraja to use. So, and also they have to pay zakat if it's wajib on them, which is pertaining to farmers and these type of things. So mostly what we have to deal with is homes. He says if a person has some close relatives who are poor, he has to give them some amount. Otherwise, he will be guilty of cutting the relations with the relatives. We said in the beginning of this course that this is one of the greater sins to cut relationship with the family. So if we have poor relatives and we don't help them, we don't try to, better their life, then we could be cutting relations with them, for example. And he says if some of his surplus money is needed by his poor relatives, he has to help them. If they are in debt, he must try to help repay their debt. If they are sick, he should pay for their medicine and, the necessities that they need for life. In fact, if he is aware of any Muslim who needs help and he doesn't help them, he is like the one described in the ayat of Quran, Surah Tawbah, ayat 34 through 35. As for the one who hoards up gold and silver and does not spend it in the way of Allah, announce to them a painful chastisement. On the day when it will be heated in the fire, then their foreheads and their sides and their backs will be branded with it. This is what you hoarded for yourselves, therefore taste of what you have hoarded. This is the ayah that Abu Dhar used to recite in front of Uthman's palace. So this is why Uthman was trying to pay him to silence him. So it's obvious, if we Muslims are one family, one body of believers, we have narrations that say if one part of the body hurts, the other part should hurt as well. We would feel it. For example, we stub our toe on, the coffee table, and then we feel this pain all the way in our head, it sends a signal to our head. So even though our head didn't get hit, we still feel the pain in our head, even though it happened in our foot. So, for example, if we see someone who's suffering, and even though, it's not directly us, but they are linked to us through brotherhood, so we should feel the pain of them also. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The one who wakes up in the morning who's not concerned with the affairs of the Muslims is not a Muslim." So if we see a Muslim who's struggling, he's a believer, he's on the path, and he's struggling with something, and we have the way to help him, and we just say, you know what? He's on his own. I'm not going to help him. I'm not going to try to help him. Even if we could help them by pointing them in the right direction to get the job, for example, link them, get them set up to where they can earn their own money. No one's saying you have to give them a salary every month, but if we see someone, for example, in the community is about to lose their home, we should help them if we can help them. If I had, for example, $20,000 in my savings account and they need to only $1,000 to pay this month's rent, and then I can help him try to find a job to get the rest of the money, it's obvious that I should help him, and Allah would want me to help him. It would be sin on us if we said, you know, I'm not going to help him, even though I have the extra to do it. I just say, forget about him. You know, this goes against teachings of Islam. So when we have wealth, it also comes with a great responsibility and a lot of accountability. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a person hoards wealth and does not fulfill the rights of, of others, the poor and the needy, and spending in the way of Allah, then on day of resurrection he will be branded with it, and it will be told to him, this is your wealth which you collected with stinginess. And Allah gave you all of this, and you didn't do anything with it. You didn't spend with it. You just hoarded it for no reason. Now you have to account for all of these things. And we have a lot of ayat that emphasize spending in the way of Allah, and they prohibited hoarding wealth. And we will get a lot of rewards if we spend in the way of Allah, and if we hoard our wealth, we'll be held accountable for that. We'll have to account for that money and why we didn't use it in a good way. Why did we hoard that wealth, for example? He says, some rich people who feel they are Muslims hoard up all the surplus wealth in foreign banks in secret accounts. Only when they exit from the world do we learn of their legacies. Allah knows that Allah knows how they shall justify their actions. If they offer the excuse of ignorance on this matter, they will be confronted with the question as to why they didn't try to learn about religion. Why didn't they attend majalis? Why didn't they go to the lectures, for example? So ignorance is not an excuse. I had a friend of mine that, I used to come out of the room all the time. We lived in the same area, like a dormitory, and I would say, "Oh, brother, I learned this today from this book. Let me read it to you." And I said, "Man, I was about 17, 18. I was like, man, I didn't know that we weren't allowed to do this thing. Do you know that? Learn. I want to tell you." And I told him, he was like, "Oh man, you shouldn't have told me that. Now I'm accountable for that." So the next time he sees me coming, he closes his ears and says, no, 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 I don't want to know, because as long as I don't know, I'm not held accountable. So I'm good. I just want to learn. I just know how to pray and how to fast. Don't tell me anything else, because then I'm not held accountable. And that was his logic, but it doesn't work like that. Allah will ask us if we say, I didn't know. Why didn't you know? Were you on some desert island, deserted island somewhere, or in the middle of the desert where there was no people or no ulama or anything like that? It's not the case. Nowadays, everything is available, even easier than it was, 20 years ago. And now we have internet. We can just get on there, look, we can find the books, we can find fatwa. Everything is right at the tip of our fingers. So, and ulama are there, can ask people. Allah will ask him, why didn't you go? Why didn't you learn? Why didn't you go to majalis? So it's inexcusable ignorance. And he said, if they had known everything, then why didn't they act on it? And he says that it's a pity that these wealthy people do not realize that spending in the way of Allah is the most appropriate use, of their money that they have. And it's the only beneficial way to spend it. The money spent in the way of Allah is deemed as like a sadaqah, or a righteous wealth. And the person who spends in the way of Allah, he will get praise in this world and also in the hereafter. And those who don't do it, they will be considered as stingy in this world, and in the hereafter, they will have to, answer for those things. Imam Hadi alayhi salam, he says, Ad-dunya as-suq, the world is a marketplace. ربح فيها قوم وخسر آخرون. So some people profit in it, and then some people lose in it. So Imam Hadi alayhi salam, he describes our world as a marketplace. And we know that in any business, you have to put in proper planning, proper preparation to be successful in a business. So the same is for this dunya. We have to properly plan how to make good investments, in our lives in this dunya so that we can benefit in akhirah. So planning requires knowledge, it requires reflection and then action. And we have to know the things that will bring us Allah's pleasure. And then we have to know the things that will earn Allah's displeasure. And we have to reflect on the best way to utilize our time on this dunya and use our money that we have here. We have to reflect how should we use it. And then once we properly strategize, then it's time for acting on those plans and using dedication and hard work. Any person in business, they'll tell you that it requires a lot of time, a lot of hard work to even start to get profits and to avoid the losses that come with business. So we also have to work even harder in order to secure our good deeds for akhirah and to avoid, the loss of Allah's pleasure, like Imam Hadi alayhi salam advised us. We shouldn't be one of those who lose in the dunya. We should be one of those like the successful businessmen who plan, strategize, invest, and become successful in dunya. So we have some people who are solely focused on just, dunya, and they neglect akhirah. We have this example from Imam Hadi alayhi salam where he addresses Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, the 10th tyrant from Abbasids. He recited this line of poetry in front of this tyrant, Mutawakkil. It's very eloquent and it gives a very good lesson. He said they made, imagine, Imam is standing in front of this oppressor who, is, if you talk against him, he could kill you. It takes a lot of courage to speak the just word in front of the tyrant, this type of jihad. He said to him, they made the lofty and high peaks their residence and permanently stationed armed guards to watch them, but none of those could stop the death from approaching them. So he tells Mutawakkil, you build your houses and palaces on these tall mountains and you look down on everyone else and you have these great kingdom you think and you appoint guards to protect you from everyone else, but you cannot protect yourself from the angel of death. He said, finally and consequently, after all of that, grandeur that you have done, they were dragged from their grand palaces into the ditches of the graves, and how unfortunately they fell into those places. Meaning, even though you have all of this nice stuff, you know, it didn't mean anything in the end. So, we have this, we should use it and if you spend it in the way of Allah, it will go forward for you in akhirah. But he's telling Mutawakkil, you think you have all of this nice stuff now, but it doesn't mean anything. You will be dragged from those palaces down into the grave. It's making him think, you know. He says, after the burial, the voice of the caller of Allah was raised. Where did those decorations and those crowns and all of those jewelry and all of those things that you had, where did it go? Where did those wealthy and luxurious faces go, in front of whom curtains and laurels were hung and placed? Where did they go? So he's saying all of these things to Mutawakkil, all these things that you collected and you hoarded and you thought, you had everything. Where did it all go? It's gone at that time. He said, at the time of their being questioned, the graves answer eloquently, these are the faces which are presently the attacking spot of the worms and the insects. They ate and they drank for a long time all that they wanted to. And right now they themselves are being eaten by the insects. For ages they built houses to dwell in, but they got separated and away from those houses and transferred to another place. They had been accumulating riches and wealth for a long time, but now they dispersed all of that wealth among their enemies, and then they departed from this world. So we see the Imam gives us a very good lesson that if we have a lot of things and we have, we should spend it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just hoard it and keep it. We should think about good things that we can use this money with. If we have extra money, we say, where is the need? What is needed now? Is it needed
Balantana
in,
America wa zai ɗauki wannan bullshit din. A guje
is,
ko a ce okay to kun yi albashi ga portion
is it,
lokacin baku da shi yanzu
is
kuna
the money needed
ga
in the
lokacin za su kuma ni
Husayniya?
dan I was so
Is the
stupid na
money
ɗauki dubu
needed in
hudu din
the
na danka musu.
masjid? Where is it
Ba su
needed?
sani.
Is it needed in hospital? What should we do with this money? So we have to ask ourselves this and say, maybe I can help contribute to the, potential helping orphans or wherever it is needed. And all of this will go towards our akhirah. So, we have to think about the things that we have and ask, even if we don't have money, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us money in order that we spend it in His cause. And we have to pass that test of having money because it's a difficult test. Maybe people get money and they wanted to give it a good cause, but then they got money and they said, I'm going to I'm going to go buy myself 5 cars and a mansion and this thing and that thing, and they didn't help anyone. So I have to think always about akhirah. Because if we put the akhirah in front of us and we know that this dunya is just a cultivation field for akhirah, what we plant here, we get there. So we have to make sure that we're not wasteful. We don't do israf and that we spend in the cause of Allah. And as Allah says, who will, give a goodly loan to Allah, Allah will multiply it many times over. So we've run out of time, and inshallah, we'll continue to talk about more about Israf in the next week's class, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.